Life-changing moments often come with a mix of excitement and fear. In this episode, we follow David as he prepares to leave Nigeria with his children to reunite with Angela in the UK. From selling off their belongings to emotional goodbyes and navigating the long journey ahead, David must stay strong for his family. But will the UK be everything they hoped for? Join us as we take you through the journey to a new life, a story of sacrifice, resilience, and new beginnings. David sat on the edge of the bed, looking around their nearly empty apartment in Lagos. The walls that once held pictures of their happiest moments were bare, and the echoes of laughter that once filled the rooms had faded. The reality of leaving Nigeria had finally sunk in. Angela had been in the UK for 6 months, working tirelessly to save enough money to bring them over. She had warned David that life in the UK was different, fast-paced, structured, and expensive. He had to be mentally prepared. As the final days approached, David focused on selling off the items they couldn't take. The television, refrigerator, and gas cooker had already been sold. The mattress and bed frame was still in the room, but a buyer was coming for them later that evening. He had given away some items to friends and family, but selling most of their belongings gave them extra money to travel with. Their neighbor, James, walked in, shaking his head. "David, so you're really going?" he asked, his voice a mix of excitement and sadness. David sighed. "Yes, my brother. It's time. The children need a better future." James nodded. "I understand. May God bless your journey." By evening, David had packed their remaining clothes into 2 large suitcases and a carry-on bag for the children's essentials. He knew the trip would be exhausting, especially traveling alone with 2 kids. A final night in Lagos. That night, the children, Michael, 10, and Grace, 7, fell asleep quickly, unaware of how much their lives were about to change. David, however, lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought about his job at the bank, the long hours, and the struggle to make ends meet despite earning a decent salary. He also thought about Angela. She had faced so many rejections before securing a job with a certificate of sponsorship costs. Now, she was in Birmingham, working long shifts, saving every penny to bring them over. He admired her strength and sacrifice. By morning, it was time to leave. His younger sister, Grace, and his mother came to say their goodbyes. His mother hugged him tightly. "My son, may God be with you. Don't forget where you come from." Grace hugged the children. "You will love it in the UK," she said, smiling through her tears. With that, David took a deep breath and stepped into the waiting taxi. At the airport, reality sets in. When they arrived at Murtala Muhammad International Airport, the chaos was overwhelming. Passengers hurried through the terminal, pushing trolleys filled with suitcases. Airport staff shouted instructions, and the long line at the check-in counter seemed never-ending. David held Grace's hand tightly while Michael walked beside him, clutching his small backpack. At the counter, the airline staff weighed their bags. "Your luggage is 2 kilograms overweight," the woman said. David sighed and unzipped one of the bags, removing a pair of shoes and some clothes. He stuffed them into his carry-on. Traveling was a lesson in letting go. After checking in, they headed to immigration control. The officer looked at their visas, stamped their passports, and waved them through. "Daddy, are we in London now?" Grace asked as they walked toward the departure gate. David chuckled. "Not yet, my princess. We still have a long journey ahead." They found their seats on the plane, with Grace sitting by the window. As the plane took off, Michael clapped excitedly while Grace held onto her father's arm. David sighed in relief. They were on their way. The long flight to London. The flight was over 6 hours long, and managing 2 children alone was not easy. The airline provided food, but Grace refused to eat much. "Daddy, I want rice like at home," she whined. David smiled. "You'll eat when we get to England." Michael, on the other hand, was fascinated by the in-flight entertainment, watching cartoons for most of the journey. David couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about their new life in the UK. Would he find a job easily? Would the children adjust? He didn't know, but he had faith. Arrival at London Heathrow. When the plane landed at London Heathrow Airport, David felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. He held Grace's hand tightly while Michael followed closely. At immigration, the officer looked at their passports. How long do you plan to stay in the UK? The officer asked. David cleared his throat. We're joining my wife. She's already in Birmingham. The officer checked the details, nodded, and stamped their passports. Welcome to the United Kingdom, he said. David exhaled. They had made it. As they walked toward baggage claim, they saw a familiar figure standing near the exit. Angela. Grace screamed, "Mummy!" and ran toward her. Angela knelt down, arms open, tears streaming down her face. "My baby, I missed you so much." Michael hugged her tightly. "Mummy, we're here." David smiled, walking up to her. She looked at him, eyes filled with emotion. "You're finally here," she whispered. "Yes," he said, pulling her into a hug. "We made it." First impressions of the UK. Angela led them to the car she had borrowed from a friend. As they drove toward Birmingham, David took in the sights, the smooth roads, the orderly traffic, the cold weather. "It's different, isn't it?" Angela asked. David nodded. "Very different." Grace pointed outside. "Daddy, look, the car's on the wrong side." Angela laughed. "That's how they drive here." As they entered Birmingham, the children grew quiet, overwhelmed by the new environment. David, too, felt the weight of reality. This was home now, settling into their new home. Angela had rented a small apartment, fully furnished with the basics. She had spent weeks preparing for their arrival, buying groceries, setting up the children's beds, and arranging the living room. When they stepped inside, Grace ran to her mother's bed. "Mummy, can I sleep here tonight?" Angela smiled. "Just for tonight, my love." Michael explored the apartment. "Where's the TV?" Angela sighed. "We'll get one soon. Things are expensive here." David sat on the couch, exhausted. "Angela, you've done so much. Thank you." She sat beside him, holding his hand. "We still have a long journey ahead, but at least we're together now." That night, as they lay in bed, David listened to the sound of the quiet UK streets, so different from the noisy nights in Lagos. Change was here, and it was only the beginning. David and the children have finally arrived in the UK, but their journey is far from over. Adjusting to a new country comes with its own challenges. Will David find a job? How will the children adapt to their new school and environment? Stay tuned for the next episode as their story unfolds. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. Subscribe to 4Trex Tales and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter in their journey. See you in the next episode.